Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a really sharp look at a digital phenomenon that's become a financial shark absorber for millions in India. We're talking about emergency healthcare crowdfunding and specifically the country's leading platform, Milaap.
This is a system that was born out of absolute necessity. The financial context is it's stark.
How stark are we talking?
Well, think about this. India's private healthcare spending is somewhere around $90 billion a year.
90 billion, wow.
But here's the number that really matters. 60 billion of that. That's out-of-pocket costs.
So that's money people are just pulling from their savings or borrowing.
Exactly. They're emptying bank accounts, taking on huge debt just to pay for a surgery. So these crowdfunding platforms, they're not just a convenience. They're a critical bridge filling a huge structural gap.
A bridge is the perfect word for it. And the scale of this bridge is almost hard to get your head around. Milaap started in 2010.
A long time in the tech world.
For sure. And today, it's raised over 2,100 crore rupees for almost 500,000 fundraisers.
And the vast majority of those are for medical emergencies.
Right. So our mission today is to really get under the hood of this massive social safety net. How does it work? How do they build and maintain trust? And, the big economic question, how does it survive on a zero-fee model?
Okay, let's just jump right in and unpack the blueprint. At its simplest, medical crowdfunding is just raising money online for critical expenses.
Things like organ transplants, cancer treatments, the really big life-altering stuff.
Exactly, it's a lifeline. And the process seems simple on the surface, but what makes it work is this layer of mandatory verification they've built in.
Right, I saw that. The setup process, create a profile, share your story, collect funds, money gets transferred. It sounds almost too easy.
It does.
But the real key, the thing that makes it trustworthy, is the prep work you have to do before you even launch. You have to gather all this documentation.
That's it. It's not enough to just tell a compelling story. You have to provide the evidence.
So you need what? Doctors, prescriptions, lab reports?
Prescriptions, diagnostic reports, and crucially, the hospital bills and cost estimates. All of that needs to be ready beforehand.
And why is that so important?
Because having those documents on hand is what speeds up Milaap's own verification process. And in a medical emergency, time is everything.
Hang on a second, though. If a family is in the middle of a high-stress medical crisis, isn't asking them to gather all that paperwork a huge barrier?
It can be. It absolutely can, and that's why the platform offers a couple of ways to get started.
Okay.
You can go the do-it-yourself route, the DIY process, which gives you total control. But a more common path for these complex cases is to just request a callback.
For some personal guidance.
Exactly, and what's fascinating is that no matter which way you go, you get a dedicated campaign manager assigned to you.
Oh, interesting. So there's a human element.
A huge human element. That person guides you through all the bureaucratic stuff, trying to balance that urgency with the need for verification.
And that human guidance is so vital, because that leads us to the next part, maximizing the impact of the story itself.
Right.
People don't donate to a spreadsheet, they donate to a narrative, to a person.
You have to craft a story that's not just clear about the financial need, but that also it focuses on the emotional toll this is taking on the patient, on their family.
And you need that urgency, right?
Yeah.
A clear time frame for when the money is needed for the treatment.
Absolutely. And to build that donor trust, you have to pair that emotional story with total transparency. That means adding good photos and, most importantly, uploading those medical documents right to the campaign page.
So you're not just asking for help, you're proving you need it.
You are proving the need.
So once you have that compelling, verified page, the game shifts to outreach. And I found this really interesting. It's not about generic social media blasts.
No, not at all. It's about leveraging these localized high-trust networks. Spreading the word through personal chat groups like WhatsApp is often way more effective in India than, say, a generic tweet.
That network effect seems huge.
It is, and we see campaigns do really well when they reach out locally to community groups, religious organizations, even local businesses who can promote the fundraiser within their own circles.
And the work doesn't stop when the donations start coming in, does it?
Not at all. You have to keep that trust alive. That means regular updates on the campaign page, progress reports, thanking donors, showing people exactly where their compassion is going.
Okay, let's talk about the math for a second. Setting a realistic fundraising goal. This can't just be a number you pull out of thin air.
No, it has to be meticulous. The calculation has to break down every single cost. the hospital stay, the doctor's fees, medicine, even travel if you need it.
So transparency is the #1 rule.
It's the core rule. You should break down that cost structure using an estimate document straight from the hospital.
I also saw a recommendation to add a small buffer.
Yes, that's a really common strategy. Medical emergencies are, well, they're unpredictable, and having that little extra cushion can cover unforeseen costs without having to, launch a second frantic campaign.
And these campaigns usually run for what, 60 days?
Typically 60 days to create that sense of urgency, yeah. But you can request extensions if you're getting close to the goal.
So we've covered the need, the process. Now we get to what I think is the most interesting part. The economic puzzle. Milaap has a 0% platform fee.
0.
They are very clear that this is so the maximum amount of money gets to the person who's sick.
Which immediately begs the question, how do you run a massive tech company with campaign managers and security and everything else with no mandatory fees?
How do they do it? The whole thing seems to be built on goodwill.
That's exactly what it is. It's a voluntary tipping model.
So when you donate, you get an option to add a little extra for the platform itself.
Right. When a donor contributes, they can add an optional tip directly to Milaap, and that generosity is what funds the whole operation. It's pretty amazing, actually. It shows the community believes the mechanism itself is worth sustaining.
Oh, wait, they do have some fees, right? It's not completely free for everyone.
Correct. They have a fee, usually between 5 and 8%, but it only applies if a campaign requests premium professional services.
Like what?
Things like advanced marketing help or hiring a dedicated manager to handle all the content and promotion for you. They also bring in money through corporate partnerships and CSR initiatives.
Okay, we have to clarify one thing, though. The one cost that isn't their fee, but is just. It's an unavoidable part of the digital economy.
The payment gateway charges.
Explain that.
Think of it like a toll on a digital highway. Milaap doesn't keep this money, but the financial system, the banks, Visa, MasterCard, the payment apps, they all take a small cut every time money moves.
And Milaap just passes that cost on.
Transparently, yes. And these fees can vary. A UPI payment in India might be less than 1%, but some credit cards can be closer to 4%.
And that friction gets bigger when you go global, which is where a lot of these big donations come from.
For sure. If you're donating in US dollars from a foreign card, you'll see charges around 2.9% plus a small fixed fee. It's just an unavoidable global cost.
Which brings us perfectly to the foundation of this entire model, trust.
Yes.
Because we know the world of online giving has its issues. We've seen reports of people successfully exposing fake campaigns. So if trust is your only currency, how does Milaap protect it?
They call it trust engineering. It's a system with multiple layers. It starts with the basics, like verifying government IDs and mobile numbers for the campaign organizer.
That's just table stakes.
Exactly. The really robust part is the medical verification. They don't just take the family's word for it or look at the uploaded documents.
So what do?
For these serious medical cases, their team goes a big step further. They contact the hospital directly to confirm the illness and to validate the treatment costs.
That's huge. That expert check, built right in, must be the real engine of trust here.
It is. And for NGOs, which handle larger sums, they require even more vetting, like ADG and FCRA certifications.
FCRA, that's the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, right?
Yes, and that law is incredibly strict about how Indian organizations can receive money from international donors.
So what happens if, despite all this, a fraudulent campaign slips through?
They're very open about their protocol. They say fraud accounts for less than 0.05% of campaigns. But if they find one, it's removed immediately, and they issue a 100% refund guarantee to every single donor.
A full refund. That's a powerful commitment.
It has to be. It's what keeps people confident in the system.
And for you, the donor, the security is pretty straightforward. All transactions are protected with top-tier 256-bit SSL encryption. And, maybe just as important, they promise not to share or sell your contact info, so your good deed doesn't result in a bunch of spam.
You know, when you put it all together, what Milaap has built is, well, it's kind of revolutionary. They've managed to institutionalize digital generosity by creating this structured, mobile-first, and mostly fee-free system to fight back against India's massive out-of-pocket healthcare problem. And the numbers speak for themselves. Over 1,400 crore rupees raised for medical causes alone. It's a vital social safety net.
It's the power of a globally connected community. But There's one last really interesting point of friction that this deep dive uncovered.
Yes, the speed bump.
Exactly. While local payments in India are almost instant, thanks to things like UPI, those big international donations, the ones in US dollars, they hit a major regulatory wall.
They do. Those transfers can take 5 to 7 days to clear. And it's entirely because of complex national compliance rules, like that FCRA law we mentioned, which scrutinizes foreign money coming into the country.
So here's the thought I want to leave everyone with. This platform is designed as a bridge, right? Connecting people in urgent need with a global community of compassion.
The perfect metaphor for it.
The question then is, can digital finance ever achieve truly instantaneous global empathy when it keeps getting bottlenecked by necessary but slow national regulations? That tension, that push and pull between speed and security, that feels like a fundamental hurdle worth mulling over.